Hello, thanks for watching this palm reading. I took this picture of this person's palm many months ago. I worked with this person for a short period of time, and I didn't get to know her all that well, but I felt like we would have made good friends. She was a very open and warm person, genuine. What you see is what you get type personality, and I felt like she had great potential. Um, but not quite enough self-belief. And just looking at her palms, I've just gotten around to doing her palm reading. Well, we're going to do it now. A lot of the things I felt and saw in this person are, here in this palm. But other than what I've just mentioned, there's really very little I know about this person. So uh, I've been racking my brains about what sort of palm it is we're looking at here, and it's a rectangular palm with long fingers, but only just. So that means this person is, I mean, just to clarify, with the four sort of elements, there are certain things that can help you determine a person's palm, what sort of category they fall more under. So with a water palm, long fingers, there's often a gap. It's very common to see a space between the life and the headline, and that's because the longer the palm, the greater the chance for this to occur. Also, obviously, one of the first things you're going to notice here is there are lots of lines going on here. If this is a full hand, a many-lined hand, and that's also more common with water hands as well. Water hands, however, don't have their fingers usually so spread out as this. These are, I mean, it's not incredibly spread out, but overall, there's a good amount of openness here, of extrovertedness, which is that sort of fire element as well. And I say fire because the fingers are only just long enough, so we've almost got a fire hand, but overall, there's a water hand with a fire element, and that means this person is sort of more grounded from the negative water aspects of their personality. So, for example, there's a long headline that reaches quite low down into lunar. If this person wasn't grounded by this very sort of genuine and say what you see, almost sort of bold brashness part of their character, then they would be in danger of falling into despondency. So water palms generally, they're very introspective, almost to the point where if too much, self-absorbed, and they can be prone to depression. But on the plus side, their imagination, the headline reaching into lunar, and with a longer well of lunar as well to to tap into this imagination, this area of creativity, is unparalleled from the other elements. So the pros are, being artistic and creative and being imaginative, and utilizing this imaginative and creative resources like dreams and memory, whereas the other elements can't do this quite so well. But on the flip side, to be too in your own mind and in your own thoughts can lead to unrealistic ideas, and living in a place in your mind which is fantastical and dark and depressing almost sometimes, and just too introverted. So the fire aspects of this person's palm um, has allowed them to has negated the negative qualities of the water. So we have a very complex person here. We have almost very sort of contradictory natures, parallel, opposing kind of natures in their psyche and their persona. So it's a very complex person, and I think that because of these things, this person's probably found themselves um, hard to um, categorize themselves, understand themselves, identify who they are. I think it probably took them quite some time to feel like where they belong in the world because of these complex elements. So predominantly water. The area of sensitivity is great with this one. Highly sensitive people. This person has a way of picking up and reading people's feelings, almost reading their thoughts, just from the atmosphere, the vibe they give off. Very good at reading the room and knowing what needs to be done in the moment, knowing what needs to be said, and that's also evident by these rounded fingertips as well. This is a person who lives in the moment and can respond in the moment well, and that's this sort of fire element as well. So to have this fire, this um, edge to water is unique, and it's it's very beneficial because it's grounding enough to negate the negatives of water, but it's also it provides the water hand with the quickness to respond in the moment, which sometimes water lacks. Sometimes a water palm, will think about things, and the moment's passed, and it fails to act in the moment in certain circumstances. Anyway, no, that's not going to apply to every certain circumstance. So obviously, we have here a many-lined hand, and what that means is this person has a nervous disposition, or at least is very anxious, thinks a lot, and obstacles in this person's life affects them more greater than the average obstacle affects others. This also, this openness of this person, this genuine, this what you see is what you get kind of character is evident by this many-lined hand as well. They are who they are. They're unapologetic about that. And if you get on with them, great, you can work with them. If not, on your bike. That's the kind of attitude this person has. And what's not to love about that? So the pro about being, this open is that they are, as I say, genuine. They are who they reveal themselves to be, and there's nothing is really hidden. There's no deception. There's no dishonesty. However, on the flip side, they can be too trusting and too idealistic, and this is evident by how the heart line reaches onto Jupiter. Only just, but it does, and so their emotional expectancy in others can sometimes be slightly unrealistic, but that's only because they are expecting what they see in themselves. And they do have a strong moral compass, and that's evident by the the Saturn finger. It's long enough. It's uh, it's everything's in the right proportions here, and Jupiter and Apollo level with each other almost. Jupiter's only just a tiny bit higher. But this is an excellent sign because it means this person's ambitions are in line with their creative talents. Their ideas of what they can manage are correct. They don't have too big an ambition, or they're not too vain. Their um, their ideas about their environment and how they can affect their environment and what they can work with, the skills that they have and how they can use them, are um, in line and kept in check by their ambition, their ideas, their decision making, their ego, their sense of authority and self-worth. All of these things are in check with each other. They're in line with each other, and this this level between Apollo and Jupiter, this alignment, is one of the signs of fame in palmistry. And as I said to this person, funnily enough, they would make a good television presenter. They would be able to manage with that kind of level of attention from the outside world and these outside opinions and views. They would actually deal well in that sort of environment. Saturn leans, so the finger leanings here are interesting because Jupiter leans towards Saturn, their ideas and their sense of judgment relies on their hard work, their moral compass, their conscience, their right and wrong. Jupiter shelters beneath their conscience. So this clearly is a person who makes decisions based on what they think is, right and wrong. And then in turn, Saturn relies slightly on Apollo. And Apollo is their environment, and that often is their family, their home life, the bills they have to pay, the assets they have to look after, their pets, their loved ones, and also those just around them, their work colleagues. And or even, if they have allotments as well, their environment. And so we have here Apollo and Saturn leaning Jupiter and Saturn leaning on the very well developed Apollo. If only Apollo were as thick as Jupiter or Saturn, if we had the same width, then we would really have a strong contender here for fame, I suppose, in this person's palm, or at least the ability to withstand and maintain the sort of pressures and that life of fame. And what's interesting is how evenly matched Apollo, Saturn, and Jupiter are. And again, this is balance. This is development. This person is well developed in all sort of aspects of their psyche, their makeup, their sense of right and wrong, and their ego and their talents. A very well developed person, a very well balanced person. There's a lot of balance going on here. However, Mercury is low set, and what that means is this person was perhaps didn't get the best head start in terms of there may well have been some difficulties during the early bonding process, and that might well be with mum or dad. It's hard to know, but I certainly think this person inherited more from their father, more from the paternal side than their mother. Despite this, this, generally speaking, when a person has difficulties during the latency, during the early bonding processes, it can damage or stunt their abilities to express themselves and to communicate and to learn. But that's not happened here. This person has a good ability to speak out, to have their message heard. Mercury here is well developed. It's straight. I mean, there's a slight kink on the inside, but there's nothing wrong with that. It reaches the first phalanx of Apollo. This is a person who has an ability to share their message articulately, eloquently. They're a good communicator. But in general, again here, Mercury leans very far away. There's a distance between Mercury and Apollo here. And this shows that this person wants to get away from their current environment at the time that this picture was taken. And as I say, this person was leaving the job at the time. And in general here, all fingers tend to lean, well, not Apollo, but generally 3 out of 4 lean away from the palm. This person wants to get away from their current situation. They want to take a break, and they're seeking the outside world, adventure and travel, in order to find some find themselves, find the answers, find whatever. And I expect that this person's palm, their hand now, their finger leanings of their right hand now, is very different from what it looks like in this picture at this time, because this was taken many months ago. So that's the overall hand shape here of this person and their finger leanings, and how this relates to how this person is thinking and feeling, and the overall characteristics of this person at this time. Now, the lifeline and the headline, overall there's a gap between the two. It's a fairly large gap. This is the sign of the tiger in Tibetan palmistry. It's a person who acts before they think, and it's impulsiveness, it's impatience. It also shows a person's ability to think outside the conventional norms, to break the rules a little bit. It's not to say they don't care about the rules. They have a long enough and well-developed enough finger of Saturn. It's just that they have an ability to, I don't like the term think outside the box, because it's just so boardroom. But they can look at things in a way that most people don't, and come up with ideas that some might find unconventional, but find ways to solve problems which most people wouldn't. Now, there's a lot to say about this person's palm. Too much to fit inside a video, really, without it becoming boring or just, just too long. But I've had a little look at this palm for about half an hour or so before making this video, and I came to a few conclusions. So one of them is that at the age of around 23, this was a real turning point in this person's life, maybe 24. And it was at this time that you can see here, this is where the moment that I'm mentioning here. There's a little triangle here. It's upside down, which is both a good and a bad thing. And it's connected to this ambition line. And it reaches right up onto the mount of Jupiter, this place of ambition and diplomacy. And it reaches inside almost a square on the Jupiter mount. The square on the Jupiter's mount is known as the teacher's square. It's not quite fully formed, but an ambition line, it reaches from the lifeline and reaches up this high on to Jupiter. It's almost a person that has recognized what they want to do in their life at such a young age. It's fairly unusual, but they haven't quite realized it. And I say this because it's not quite reaching up onto the Jupiter finger itself. If it did, if it was the case, then they would have known exactly what they should have done, or felt they should have done, and would have pursued and reaching this potential from that moment onwards. It's rare to see, so it's no bad thing. However, there are some strong lines on the third phalanx of Jupiter. I mean, there's lots all over the lower, the basal phalanges, in particular Jupiter. And this shows that this person is popular. But in particular, there are two strong lines here. And this again ties in with this ambition, this same ambition, and you can see it changes path. After a certain age, they kind of change their mind about things. It's not the same. They change their plans, their ideas about who they are and what they want to be and where they're going to go. They have yet to achieve what it is they're going to. And I say this because there's a little moment here, a little circle here, and then success, happiness is achieved. And this is later. This is mid-60s. No, this is late 60s onwards. And it's confirmed by these other, the career and this other sun line as well. Now, the unusual thing about this palm, whenever I look at a palm, I always think to myself, what's really standing out here? What's the unusual thing? I believed I was looking at a sun line of this type of length, and I just couldn't believe it, because you just don't see this sort of thing very often. But actually, that's not quite the case. The sun line is here, but then it sort of becomes fragmented and isn't really sure where to go, what to do, how to become happy. Things become a bit indecisive. And that might be because of this headline. Whoops. That is likely due to this headline that forks. It looks as though it forks. And this is known as the sign of the fish in Tibetan palmistry. And it's the sign it's the sign of someone who's able to perceive things from from one perspective, an ability to put themselves in other people's shoes. It's helpful for psychologists, for actors, for writers, and for lawyers. It's particularly helpful in these fields. It's helpful in all walks of life. The cons of this are that this person can sometimes believe things that aren't quite real. They might end up fabricating things without even realizing it. Say something, not realize it's not quite the truth, and just sort of roll with it anyway. But I'm not 100% convinced this person has a fork that's quite as large as this. You see here, the headline appears to break away like this, but I'm not certain that's the case. I think the headline does fork, but in not quite the same area. I think it forks in memory. And I think that what we have here is actually a sun line that began early on. It's a tricky one. So it sort of looks as though happiness was there, and there was an incident that stopped this. And looking at other signs in the palm, this was early on, this is an emotional disturbance. It's possible to find out where this occurred. So we have here are some Mercury lines. Here's one as well. It's all one and the same, or liver line, if you like, sometimes referred to as the health line, probably incorrectly. And you can see a little flick coming off here. This looks like digestive issues, perhaps gallbladder or liver. They're all tied to one another because they all interact within that same major area of the body, the digestive issues. I believe that there was this is a strong emotional response that had an effect on this person's physical health at this time. And again, you have it here. So you have this entire episode here, and at the beginning of it there's one response, and at the end of it there's another. And at the end of that response, it was almost like enough is enough. And I think this was in response to what occurred at home. And I say this this is the family ring. Venus is the place of home, stability, love, relationships, family, friends. And we have here from this area, from the family ring, from the home life, at the age of 34, I'm going to say, we have something that comes in, it crosses, creates a barrier, an obstacle for the life, affects the career, and here it is affecting the career. Here's the career line. The headline crossing the career is at the age of around 34, 35. Could be 36. I'm going to say 34 to 36. I think this person's relationship broke down and it affected all areas of this person's life. And this relationship is seen here. And notice how the relationship line reaches down. 2 children from this relationship, or sometimes referred to as marriage line. The marriage line reaching downwards shows how the person is brought down by the relationship, emotionally, psychologically, sometimes financially even. And I think from this relationship, as I say, they had 2 children, probably a boy and a girl. It's possible that there was potential for other children as well, but at the very least 2 children. I don't really rate these children lines all that much. They're not very reliable, but you can certainly see on the family ring there is 1 and 2, at least 2 children. So I think this person perhaps had a divorce from the age of anywhere between 34, 36. It affected their life greatly. And they made some major changes. This had changed their emotional makeup greatly. Look how the heart line changes direction after this. And they changed their, as I say, their perspective on their relationship ideology, who is right for them, what they want from a relationship, what they expect from a person. Is it too much to ask for someone? I don't want to make an assumption about exactly what happened here during this relationship, but it's possible that this was infidelity from the partner once and then a second time, and enough is enough. It's a possibility. I don't want to make that assumption, but these downward strokes from the heart line is disappointment. It's when the heart relies on the headline at this time, which is why the heart line reaches down for psychological support. What should I do during this time? The heart asks for the head for assistance. Give me an idea. Give me a rational response here, because I'm dying here. That's what the heart's doing. That's what the heart's saying. And during this time, you can see quite clearly a square of protection, a need to protect, and you know the heart depends on logic and reasoning for this at this time, and the support as well, you know, from loved ones as well. It's all sort of tied in with it. So there was a great change during this person's life. Again, this pinnacle time of mid-20s, 24-ish, where this ambition came from. I sort of trailed off when I was talking about this earlier. And just before this, you see this efforts, you know, you have this effort line reaching towards Mercury, this place of learning and language and communication and expression, of learning skills. And these skills are evident here. And you can see it here with the headline flicking offwards towards Mercury as well, trailing in this direction, touching these skills over here, and you know, this is the beauty of this sort of open, full palm. It's just everything is there, so much that you just don't know where to begin. So these skills were acquired by fantastic efforts of determined achievements made during the mid-20s. And it's these achievements, these skills, that will lead this person to ultimately find out what it is that they should be doing, what they're good at, and you know, make money from it as well, but not until later on in life, which is bittersweet. But you know, this person will get there. So what they're good at doing, um, what they enjoy doing, they will make money from. These are the three things of success, and so they will have that. But it's ironic that the first things they kind of set out to, the skills they first gained, actually they've come full circle. So this crossroads period led them shortly, you know, during this time of this decision of, well, this is what I'm going to do, came from motivation, came from this Mars negative, lowers Mars area, place of motivation and determination, this fiery place of, this is what I'm going to do, led them to change their life. They moved away at this time. And you can see that by the overlap in the lifeline. This person changed their environment, and that's what the lifeline represents in many circumstances, their overall environment. And on that note, this person, the lifeline, if you look, the overall lifeline, look where it ends. It's right down in the center. It's in Neptune. It ends in a place that's far away from normally a lifeline, wraps around the base of Venus, indicating someone living and dying in their native land. This person will move away and die in a country not native to their own. And this coincides with, you know, this need to get away. That's what I believe. This person is quite adventurous, and I think they will learn, I think they have learned a great many things from this. I believe this person had their sun line, I think, in this case, shows their children. I could be wrong, but I think child number 1 and child number 2 were had at the ages of where the marriage line stops, 34 to 36 was the second child, and the first was early 30s, perhaps late 20s. I'm going to say early 30s. So first child was early 30s, second was 34. And the children appearing on the success line is a fantastic sign, because it shows us this person's values, what they value as success and happiness. This person, the efforts made by their children means a great deal to them. I'm not going to say this person lives their life through their children, but they do hold their children in high regard, and this is also in line with their emotional ideology. Now, after mid-30s, 34, 35, there were several career changes here, and it might be that there was a hobby alongside a paying career. And I don't know what this was, but there's so much going on here. And in early 50s, there were several career changes all throughout 50s. You can see the career changes by, well, there's here this main money maker. This is the main profession. It's the career line comes from the lifeline, which shows a career that's quite sort of hands-on. That's it requires a bit of physicality, requires energy. It's not so much a career. This person doesn't really gain satisfaction from. This person really does need a lot of variety, something that's physically stimulating as well as mentally, and that's because of the complexities of this person being a water and a fire hand. But during 40s to 50s, look at this little window here. It's fantastic square of protection around this person's career at this time. It's hard to say exactly what's happening here, but this, whatever is going on in their career, it's okay. It's going to be all right. Whatever happens, there's always another skill to fall back on. There's always another role in the pipeline to jump on. It's like this person is searching, constantly searching for what's right for them, and won't stop until they find it, and they will. And as I say, it was there all along. And this little window of protection here, which protects the career, it's fantastic. You can also see another one here as well, protecting this person's happiness, protecting their stability, their security, their financial life. And I believe this is family huddling together, family and friends, support network, enabling this person to climb back on the horse, because it does look as though there is this another period of disappointment, but at what time in this person's life, it's hard to say. This occurred late 40s. Yeah, so I'm jumping back a bit here. This was a moment in the late 40s. So this period here is around 35. This period here is around 50, 55 in their career. So late 40s, perhaps 50-ish. Yeah, it could even be early 50s. There was another period of disappointment, emotional disappointment, which threatened to affect their career at this time, but they have and were supported throughout this time. I would recommend this person keep searching, keep trying out different things. They're going to find out what it is. It's going to be in a sort of hands-on role, a mixture of working with people and in a sort of hands-on role where they find what they're suitable for. I would recommend that mid to late 60s in particular to look after, I'd recommend for them to look after their digestive system, particularly their gallbladder, liver, and their gut, their intestines, their digestive organs at this time, avoiding dairy, particularly milk at this time, and perhaps use probiotics as well. Avoid stress. Really avoid stress as much as possible, because it plays havoc on your physical nervous system. That's key here. It really is. I can't stress that enough. With this person in particular, stress has a deep impact, a knock-on effect on their physical health. There's one deep line here on the second phalanx of Mercury, indicating that, again, the skills that they have learned, they will end up utilizing later on in life and become an expert in, respected for, and by this skill that they picked up and learned. I would advise them to rely on their friends, because they rely on you, and it's what friends are for. In times of hardship, they are there for you, and you will need them. So don't feel that you can't or you shouldn't reach out to them. They are your extended family. And this headline that reaches over, it climbs down and reaches over to Luna. It shows that this person again is thinking about travel at this time, and I would expect to see this headline changed at this point in time. That by now this headline may well have changed direction, because they might well have pursued their kind of explorative desires by this time. So late 60s shows a new course of happiness in this person's life, a new sort of found direction. I think it ties in with their work life and their home life. I think they have a new beginning, a new lease of life, and I think that they will find happiness. I think their calling in life is one of their callings in life, at least, is still yet to be found, and I think they're close to finding it. So that is this person's palm reading. I'm going to stop here because I think it's time. And I really enjoyed reading this person's palm, and I've just realized I've only looked at the right hand in doing this reading. But it's okay. So, the left hand, what we're thinking and what we're feeling about our situation at this time. Again, the little finger is leaning away even further on the left hand, which again, confirms this a great desire to get out of the current situation they find themselves in, which, as I say, this person was doing at this time. So I hope this reading was helpful, and as I say, I really enjoyed reading this person's palm. I love reading a full palm. It's one extreme to the other when you go from reading an empty person's palm to reading a full palm, because it's so hard reading an empty palm. You have to use chirognomy much more and read literally between the lines to extract as much information as possible, because they're just such a closed book. There's a lot of information there, but it's all beneath the surface, and they don't reveal themselves, only to those closest to them. Whereas a full palm reveals sometimes too much, and this openness can be, to their own detriment at times. Just looking now, I'm just sort of thinking about how they've changed as a person over time, but much in the same way as many of us have through the lessons we've learned. And so it's not really all that relevant to get into and increase the length of this video. But thank you very much for watching, and please subscribe if you've got any. If you would like your palm included in any one of these videos, please email me, and I may well include your palm. I don't think I can do every one. I'm getting emails every day now. But I do appreciate them, and any questions at all, please ask. I'm learning all the time, and I'm happy to pass on this information. It's part of this whole, the idea of all of these videos. So thank you, and please continue watching. Please continue commenting and liking. And if you've got any questions about the palm reading here, please email me or drop in the comments below. Thank you.